Well, hello everyone, Texie88 here and welcome to my latest video. And now you may remember a while back I did a video about a board game called Space Crusade. This time I'm taking a look at another board game, this time HeroQuest. Now, this is a game that originally came out in 1989, which was a joint venture between Milton Bradley, aka MB Games, and Games Workshop. Though it's worth pointing out that the Games Workshop shops here in the UK rebranded under the name Warhammer, but back when HeroQuest was originally released back in 1989, it was Games Workshop rather than the Warhammer that the shop's now better known as. Now this is actually the Avalon Hill 2021 re-release, which was able to go ahead after a successful crowdfunding campaign, which I believe happened the preceding year, 2020. And whereas the 1989 European version was had a lot of the enemies only requiring one hit point and less of an emphasis on cooperation, which was changed in the original US release. This re-release it actually takes more after the original US version, so the aspects from the original version of that are prevalent. I mean, the evil wizard in the original European version was called Morcar. It was renamed Zargon in the original US version, and as such, because of what I just said, it's Zargon in this 2021 re-release, regardless of where you are in the world. So we got it's a slightly different artwork, but with a similar feel on the front cover of the box. And let's just take a look inside. Yeah, apologies for this. The box is a little bit buckled because another member of the household fell on it recently. But the box itself is still intact enough that I can still use it. I've actually had this for a little while, and as I record this, it's the early hours of 11th of February 2023, and I actually bought this in May of 2022. Gosh, apologies, it's a bit hard to open it with just one hand. That's better. So we've got the shield, which is used for whoever's playing as Zargon. This is just basically on the reverse of it. If you were playing as Zargon, you'd have it like this, so that you could keep certain things here which you didn't want the hero players to see, and you got all the info about the monsters that are under your control as you play as Zargon. And you get a little refresher of the kind of things that heroes and monsters can and cannot do. And there's a little bit of combat summary there. So there's that. And this here is the board. And my understanding is that in the original 1989 version, the board didn't fold and open out the way it does in this version, and that this version is actually a little bit bigger. But the actual overall map itself is identical. and it's got the HeroQuest logo on the right. So this is particularly helpful for the person who's playing Zargon, because it gives an idea of where they need to place certain things. Because there's a rule that the HeroQuest logo on the right there should be on the right to give them an idea of which way is up, basically. So if we just fold this away and put it to one side for the time being, now we've got the first of two encased sets of bits and bobs which are used in the game. Again, I'm having to struggle because of only having one hand available to me. Same cover artwork on the cardboard sleeve there as on the main cover of the board game itself. So here we have the monsters that are used in the game, as well as the four heroes who are the red ones, and we've got these various dice. The two red dice are just regular six-sided numbered dice like you might get in pretty much or virtually every other board game in existence. And then you got the combat dice. Now my understanding is that the combat dice in the original 1989 version had just painted on decorations, whereas these are actually embossed into the dice. So each of these combat dice has 3 skulls, 2 white shields, and 1 black shield. And those are actually the skulls actually determine how many hit points the attacker can inflict on the defender, as long as the defender doesn't roll its respective shields. Each respective shield would contradict a skull rolled by the attacker and cancel its effect. For example, if you were attacked by an enemy and it rolled 2 combat dice, the attacker only worries about the skulls. Anything else is null and void. The defender, however, is trying. It will depend on whether the defender is a hero or an enemy. So if as I just rolled 1 skull, there's potential that the defender could lose 1 health point. So if the defender was a hero, then that 1 white shield would have nullified the effects of that 1 skull. Each one of these white shields nullifies the effect of 1 skull in the attacker's roll. Had that been a monster, then that would have been no good, and they would have taken 1 health point of hit. If it had been a monster and rolled that, however, then that black shield with the saber-toothed creature on it would have nullified the effect of the skull of the attacker's roll. So very simple mechanics in that, although it's a bit of a pain that you can be potentially wiped out just because of unsuccessful dice rolls. Now we'll actually look at the monsters themselves. So we've got, annoyingly the light's a bit of an awkward position, but I'll try and counteract it. So we've got some orcs here, selection of goblins, 2 more orcs, another 2 orcs, dread sorcerer, another 2 orcs, 4 dread warriors, a gargoyle, and 3 abominations. And we've also got 4 skeletons, 2 mummies, and 2 zombies. Now, in the original 1989 version, the Dread Warriors and the Dread Sorcerer were called Chaos Warriors and the Chaos Sorcerer, respectively. Because Games Workshop were no longer involved with this Avalon Hill re-release, there were rights issues that prevented the use of the term Chaos in this game. So every time that Chaos was used in the 1989 original, the word has simply been replaced with the word Dread. Another rights issue prevented the use of a creature that was known as the Fimir in the original version. Instead, they've been replaced with the Abomination. But stats-wise, the Abomination is identical to the Fimir in the original American version. As I said earlier, this 2021 re-release is solely based on the previous US release version, which toughened things up a bit compared to other parts of the world, and also made it more cooperative between the four heroes. Whereas my understanding is that it was. It's more case of trying to outdo the others heroes if you're a hero yourself. So the heroes in question are the wizard, the elf, the dwarf, and the barbarian. All of them are just as good at defending themselves, but the barbarian rolls the most attack dice when attacking a monster, and also has the highest health points. Dwarf and elf are just as good as each other at attack and defense, but the dwarf has one more health point than the elf. Wizard can only attack with one attack die and has the fewest health points, but he has the most spell usage available to him. The elf has limited spell use, and the dwarf has the innate ability to be able to disarm traps, whereas if any other hero wanted to be able to do that, that particular hero would have to actually have a toolkit from the armory, which you can buy from between each of the 14 quests in the game, because you can actually gain gold pieces as you progress through each of the quests in this game, depending on whether you're successful enough in searching for treasure in rooms, or if you manage to gain a certain number of gold coins by looking in a treasure chest in a room, or even just by fulfilling a particular requirement as set out by the mission objective in the quest that would be read out by the player controlling Zargon before the quest began. And this cardboard bit is just something to help make the plastic tray that contains those things more rigid. And then underneath that, we've got another cardboard sleeve housing another plastic tray. This one, however, has markedly different contents. So what we've got here, we've got an altar, torture rack, a throne, 2 tables, weapons rack, an apothecary table, a bunch of skulls, some rats, 3 treasure chests, a fireplace, sarcophagus with a removable lid, 2 bookcases and a cupboard, 5 closed doors. I haven't lost that one. It's just this moment fell on the floor, but that's what that thud you heard a few moments ago. And all the rest of the doors are open doors. When heroes first come across a door, it's closed, and they can actually get and during a turn, if at any point they're next to it, they can actually get the Zargon character to open it up. Zargon's minions can't actually open doors themselves, only the heroes can do that. And then you've got a whole pad full of character sheets where you can record who record the details and stats of your character, and whether or not they've bought any bought or even acquired during a quest any weapons or armor. And you can keep track of body points as they take damage and heal themselves with various potions, magic spells, and the like. And as I said, there are 14 quests in HeroQuest, and each time a hero completes a quest, they can actually circle the one they've just done, so that if they're doing the full campaign, they can actually they don't have to try and remember which one they'd got to. And there's a box there to record the number of gold coins, and here you've got the means of marking whether you've got any potions and other such inventory items and how many. And one thing I have noticed is never actually been absolutely certain what those skulls and rats are for. I guess they're just additional decoration to help make the experience more immersive or something. But they're, from what I can make out, they're completely optional, and they're not absolutely compulsory. If you never use them, it wouldn't affect the gameplay in any way whatsoever. Let's get this out of the way, and I'll talk about the pack of cards that I've just this moment picked out. So here's the cards I've just picked out from that second plastic tray, and these top four are the info cards for the 4 heroes. So you got the wizard, dwarf, barbarian, and elf. One change made from the original 1989 version is the elf is now female, but otherwise has exactly the same stats as in the earlier version. And you may remember there were the attack dice, defend dice, body points, and mind points on the character sheet that I showed you a few moments ago. You can actually write these in, and if you manage to buy things that improve some of those, you can actually adjust them accordingly. You have to provide pencils and rubber yourself. Those aren't provided, but those aren't going to cost an arm and a leg, so they can be picked up very cheaply. So that's not really a major problem. And on the back of each of the cards is a little bit of a limited story about each of the 4 characters. We'll just get those out of the way now, and then we'll look at the next 8 cards in the pile. Now, these 8 cards are mainly for the references for the hero players. They just tell you about all of the 8 different enemies in HeroQuest that whose the figures I showed you earlier. And you've probably also noticed that 4 of the orcs and some of the goblins were also made female, but they have exactly the same stats as their male counterparts. So they don't act. So you can actually choose which one of those you would put on the board if you were playing as Zargon, and the hero uncovered a room that has them in. And each one has this little symbol on them, which corresponds with how they're viewed on the quest book maps. So it's clearer as to which kind of monster you need to put down if the moment an enemy comes into line of sight of one, either by opening a door or by going round a corner and suddenly seeing something that was not visible previously. So each one of these monsters has movement squares, so they don't need to roll dice to move. They can move the maximum of what's in that movement square every single turn they have. So the next set of cards are artifact cards. These tend to come into play if you do certain things during a quest. These are not available to buy or otherwise obtain between quests when you visit the armory to spend any gold coins that you might have picked up during the quest just ended, or carried across from previous quests you may have completed in the same campaign. So you've got all sorts of different ones available to you, and it's clear, and it's given instructions on each one how they work, and they're really self-explanatory, so there's nothing too complicated about them really. So the next set of cards in that pile are treasure cards, and these speak to themselves because when a hero is in a room, one of the actions they can take that they can only do in rooms is search for treasure. Each one of the heroes can search for treasure once per room, and some of them are beneficial, others are not so beneficial. Some of them will give you treasure in the form of gold coins. Others might give you, say, a potion of healing, so you can restore a set number of lost health points, either up to 4, or however much you roll on a movement die, but never more than the number of health points that particular character started with. So, for example, since the barbarian never starts off with 8 body points, if they took damage and took a health potion to restore, even if they rolled enough to go beyond 8, it can never be more than 8. So it would only go up as far as 8 if the number they rolled on the die in such a thing went beyond that, or if there was a set amount that would have taken them beyond their original maximum. And there can be other kinds of potions and so forth that allow you to do certain things, usually once on the turn that immediately follows the taking of said potion. And other treasure cards will result in at least one wandering monster, and others will cause a hazard which will harm the hero that was searching for treasure. All of them are, again, very clearly explained, so nothing to get overly panicked about. It's not really complicated at all. And then the next bit in that pile are these equipment cards. Now, in the original 1989 version of HeroQuest, there was actually a single sheet of what's in the armory. Remember, I mentioned the armory earlier, in which any of the hero players can actually use any gold coins that they've amassed over the previous quest or quests to spend on extra bits and bobs to help them out. For instance, they might want to get better weapons, or to enable them to potentially roll more attack dice than they currently can, or they might want to get shields or helmets and so forth, and to enable them to roll additional defend dice in the event of an attack. Although it's worth pointing out that the vast majority of weapons and armour cannot be used by the wizard. But all of them are quite well explained as well. So there's a shield which allows, and it tells you how much they cost in terms of the number of gold coins you have to spend in order to get one of those. So if you bought a shield for instance, you would actually write that in the armor section of your character sheet for that particular hero. And yeah, as it says, it allows you to roll 1 extra defend die. So if as I said earlier, all of the heroes initially defend with 2 defend dice. So one that has a shield would be able to roll 3 defend dice whenever attacked, which of course increases the chances of being able to adequately protect yourself, particularly against enemies that have stronger attacks than others. And the next set of cards in that pile are the dread spells, which are used by certain magic using evil wizards, sorcerers on the like of Zargon's team. Again, as you probably guessed by the word dread, these would have been called chaos spells in the original 1989 version. And there are all sorts of different ones available, with giving differing types of effects on the hero. And some of those spells can be countered by the hero being upon which they're cast if they roll certain numbers on as many of the movement dice as that particular hero has mind points. Remember, I mentioned mind points as one of the things listed on the character sheet and on the hero info cards that I showed a few moments ago. So, for example, if a dread spell was cast on the wizard, for instance, the wizard has 6 mind points, so they could try and counteract it by rolling up to 6 movement dice, and it's depending on the kind of card, it might be that they can nullify, they can cause the spell to break if they roll either a 6 or 5 or 6 or whatever, depending on what it says on the dread spell card of the spell being cast. And speaking of spells, these are the spells that can be used by the heroes, specifically the elf and the wizard. So there are 3 earth spells, 3 air spells, 3 fire spells, and 3 water spells. So what would happen before a quest began is that whoever was playing as the wizard would take one of those sets of 3, then the elf would take another set of 3, and whatever was left the wizard would get. I have to admit, it would have been better if there were more spells that were actual offensive spells. There are only really 3 that allow you to actually attack a monster, and 2 of them are in the fire spell section: the Fire of Wrath and Ball of Flame, which allow you to potentially do 1 or 2 body points worth of damage to any one monster you cast it on that's within line of sight. And the other one, there's in one of the other sets, there's a spell called Genie, which allows you to either open any, or here it is in the air spells. There's Genie, which allows you to either open any closed door or use 5 combat dice to attack any monster within line of sight. Personally, I can't see anyone wasting that card just to open a door. So that's a bit of a dead loss. But apart from that, the rest of the spells are mostly to help out the heroes and or increase their defense capabilities usually for just 1 turn. Although the earth spell has a rock skin one, which has an effect of a hero affected by that spell being able to roll 1 additional defend dice in the event of an attack, and the effect of that spell lasts until they take their first body point of damage since the spell was cast, after which they go back to the number of defend dice they were rolling before. And that's all of the cards in that pack that I showed you. Now the only thing left now is to show you what's in the box. And this is what the rest of it is. Those are just some sleeves that held parts of it together. And as I said, the pencils are just something I put in, so I always had them handy and didn't have to hunt around for finding pencils each time HeroQuest was played. So everything originally came in these sprues. Not absolutely sure what this is for. I've never actually come across a situation in which I had to use it. But all the others I can show you. This is a spiral staircase. In the vast majority of cases, it's a situation in which the heroes would start at the spiral staircase, do what they had to do within the quest as per what the Zargon player told them needed to be done, and then try and get as many of the heroes back to the spiral staircase. As long as one hero at least gets back to the spiral staircase after completing the quest requirements, that's deemed a success. And any hero that was killed during that mission can come back in preparation for the next mission. Although if there was no one else in line of sight of a hero that died, any possessions that he or she had would be lost forever. Whereas if there was someone either in the same room as them or in the same corridor section as them, or within line of sight, then whichever hero was with them when they died would take all their possessions, so it wouldn't be irretrievably lost. So there's a bit of strategy involved in that. So having one hero all by themselves is a huge risk, particularly if they're carrying a lot of items and or gold. And you also have these wall and dead end sections, and these skulls are used to record hit points for any monster that has more than one body point, so you can tell how badly damaged a particular monster has been before it's ultimately eliminated. Then you get these double-sided. All of these single square-sized things are double-sided. You might be a dead end. That's a secret door. And that's a pit. A pit is one of the kind of traps that heroes might have to endure, because another thing that each hero can do one movement and one action per turn. They can do them in any order. They can do the action first, then move, or move, then do the action. But what they can't do is, if, for example, they rolled 12 across both movement dice, they couldn't say move 6, do an action, and then move the rest of the 6. Once they stopped moving and did an action, the action would instantly nullify any of their remaining movement points on the dice. And that's the results of a falling rock trap that can potentially cut off heroes from being able to re-encounter their teammates, or prevent them getting past if the hero that set off the trap decides to stay on the same side as the rest of the heroes. And other than that, the only thing I left to mention in HeroQuest is I'll just get those out of the way. There's some character sheets that have been in use. There's these reference cards that can be given. For these, they can be given to each of the heroes. It just a reminder of what they can and cannot do during a turn. As I said, they can do one movement and one action. It's all listed there. only other thing of note, there's the rule book, which speaks for itself. You just got to get a rundown of all the rules and how things work and so forth. And the other thing, this would be only, this quest book here contains details of all of the 14 quests, except I'm not going to actually show the quests for obvious reasons, because anyone who might want to play it probably doesn't want to have any spoilers. But this isn't really a spoiler. When first played, this is what the Zargon player would read out in preparation for the start of the campaign. And also at the very back, you got so you can read after all 14 of the quests have been successfully completed by the heroes, a bit more about the heroes themselves, and there's even a blank quest page and some icons that can be used to represent the different things, like I showed you earlier. And these 2 pages, the Avalon Hill have granted permission for just these 2 pages to be photocopied, so that people can easily design their own quests to take their hero controlling friends through. Other than that, that's pretty much the HeroQuest game. It's suitable for 2 to 5 players. One player plays as any or all of the heroes, and the remaining player and one player would play as the evil Zargon. And HeroQuest in itself, it might seem certain aspects of it might seem a bit clunky and strange by today's standards. For instance, you can't move diagonally. Neither the heroes nor the monsters controlled by Zargon can move diagonally. And at least initially, no one can attack diagonally, although some of the weapons that you can obtain later, either in the armory or if you happen to luckily come across them within a quest, sometimes you get a weapon that allows you to attack diagonally, and it will be specifically indicated on the card for that particular weapon if you can do so. And it's also a bit unfair that the monsters can always move up to, say, 8 squares if you're an orc, whereas the hero might want to try and do a run if there's potential for that particular hero to become swamped, and then they roll a 2 or 3 or something like that, and then they simply haven't rolled enough to be able to get away from them, and they run the risk of being attacked literally from all four of their orthogonal sides. And if you're the wizard who has the fewest body points, that can be a huge problem, especially as the wizard can't use the sizable chunk of the weapons and armor that's available to the rest of them. Is HeroQuest still worth a look? Well, I think it is. It's a beloved board game that helped bring the then popular Dungeons and Dragons into the living room and into a board game form, and simplified it enough to make it more accessible so that parents could enjoy it along with their children, or in the case of people who were children back in the day and are now adults, it could be a case of those people are getting a nostalgia hit, and perhaps their children could be introduced to something a bit special at the same time. And ironically, I mentioned Dungeons and Dragons, and that's recently been making a resurgence. I've seen the official Dungeons and Dragons kits in the shops over the past nearly a year. It's amazing how sometimes things just come full circle. I mean, my only real gripes with HeroQuest is that, as I said, some of the generally the magic spells available to the heroes are a bit disappointing in terms of those you can actually use as weapons. There really aren't that many, which is a bit of a pain, especially as the best magic user has, as I said, the most vulnerability. And of course, what I mentioned about the monsters always being able to potentially go as far as they like up to their movement square count, whereas heroes are determined by what's rolled on the movement dice, and heroes can fall foul of traps or set them off if they haven't searched for them and had the dwarf or any hero that's later picked up a toolkit to be able to disarm the trap in question. I mean, it's a bit frustrating when monsters can just walk over a square that is known to be a trap and not even set it off, even if they're a great big gargoyle or abomination. It does seem a bit strange. I mean, the closest that they can get to that is if a monster ends up being in a square that has a discovered pit on it, then and only then do they get affected by it by being forced to roll one less die to attack or defend whilst they're in that pit. Other than that, Zargon's monsters are not affected in any way by any traps or discovered or not, or undiscovered or trapped squares that they walk on. Whereas a hero might have to jump over a pit and risk falling in and taking damage and being a bit more vulnerable for the reasons I just described whilst they're in the pit. And there's also the idea that you can that success and failure can be so easily discerned by rolls of the dice, especially as you're more likely to roll a skull on an attack die than anything else on the die, simply because 3 of the sides contain a skull, which is fine if you're the attacker, but if you're the defender, it can be a bit of a problem. So there's certain aspects which I thought can come across as a tad unfair, but all in all, I've played HeroQuest quite a few times. Part of me is kind of gutted that I didn't buy it back in the day, but I'm glad it got re-released. Although another sore spot is the RRP, recommended retail price. Its normal selling price is £99.99, which is quite excessive if you think about it. Even when you inflation adjust the £19.99 that the original 1989 board game retailed for back in the day, and then inflation adjust that to 2023, that wouldn't even come to £60. I know that the VAT was only 15% back in 1989, and now it's 20%, but even allowing for that, a penny shy of £100 is still rather steep, especially as there are more modern games which might have far fewer balancing issues and feel a little bit less on the clunky side, which would be potentially be vying for attention. I mean, as it is, I bought this in a shop when it was in a sale that substantially reduced the price, so it wasn't quite so bad for me. But anyone who didn't catch it in a sale would probably balk at having to pay nearly £100. But if you if you can get a turn at HeroQuest, it's still definitely worth a look. It's still a fun game, despite its annoying flaws that can seem a little bit outdated by today's standards. But yeah, if you get the chance to try it, do try it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at the Avalon Hill reissue of HeroQuest. And I hope to catch you on another video soon. Taxi88 out.